A teenager without electricity who read a book and built a wind turbine. A kid from Freetown who made radios out of trash. A young Maasai who figured out how to make lions and livestock coexist. 7 inventors, 7 continents reduced to one, and solutions that no one else had thought to look for. Number 7. William Kamkwamba, The Book and the Wind Turbine. The year was 2002. Malawi was in the grip of a famine. William Kamkwamba was 14 years old, and his family could no longer afford the school fees, about $80 a year, a sum that the drought had placed out of reach. He left school. What he did instead is what makes his story hard to tell without something inside you starting to move. There was a public library in his village, small, poorly stocked, but there were books. And in those books, William Kamkwamba found an energy textbook with a diagram, a wind turbine, its components, how it worked. He didn't read English fluently. He deciphered the pictures. He started gathering whatever he could find. Scavenged bicycle parts, PVC pipes, old discarded materials, metal salvaged from dumps. He worked for months in his family's yard, under the gaze of neighbors who thought he had lost his mind. His first wind turbine generated electricity. It powered light bulbs in the family home, the first time electric lights had ever turned on in the Kamkwamba household. Then a second turbine. Then a system to pump irrigation water. A blogger posted his photo. It spread. Journalists came. William Kamkwamba was invited to speak at a TED conference. He was 18 years old. His story inspired a film, The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind, released on Netflix in 2019. He earned a scholarship, studied engineering, and kept on building. But what stays with you in this story is the book and the diagrams he didn't fully understand, and a wind turbine that started turning anyway. Stay. What comes next is even more powerful. Number 6. Kelvin Doe, What Trash Can Become. In Freetown, Sierra Leone, electronic waste piles up in the streets. Broken devices, used components, stripped wires, abandoned circuit boards. To most people, it's landfill. To Kelvin Doe, it was raw material. He was 10 years old when he started systematically salvaging what others threw away. Not to play with, to understand. He took things apart, observed, assembled, started over. No engineering school, no educational kit, just what he found and the questions he asked himself alone. At 13, he had built a battery from salvaged parts, functional enough to power lights and appliances for his family in a neighborhood where blackouts were chronic. Then a generator, then a radio transmitter. With that transmitter, he launched his own local radio station. He gave himself an on-air name, DJ Focus. He played music, news, content for his neighborhood, from a makeshift studio built from what he had scavenged. An MIT engineer heard about him. The institution invited him to Cambridge as part of a program for young innovators. Kelvin Doe was 15. It was his first time on an airplane. The video of his MIT presentation has been viewed millions of times. Not because it was flashy in form, but because what it showed was hard to believe as reality. A teenager from Freetown explaining, with the precision of a self-taught engineer, what he had built from what others had thrown away. Kelvin Doe returned to Sierra Leone. He kept inventing. And what his trajectory says about what access to resources might produce in mines like his, in all the countries where such mines exist without infrastructure to receive them, remains an open question. Number 5. Richard Terere, The Solution the Lion Didn't See Coming. In the savannas of Kenya, on the border of Nairobi National Park, the Maasai herded their livestock, and the lions on the other side kept their hunting habits. These two realities clashed regularly, with the same consequences. Dead livestock, economic losses for families, and often, in retaliation, lions killed by herders. Richard Terere was 12 years old and looked after his family's cows. He had noticed something simple that the adults around him might have also noticed, but hadn't translated into a solution. Lions didn't attack when someone moved around with a light. The presence of a moving light discouraged them. He didn't have lights. He had a salvaged car battery, motorcycle headlights, a scavenged solar regulator, and wires. He spent time figuring out how to put them together, fumbling, failing, starting over. And he installed around the family enclosure a system of sequentially flashing lights, turning on and off at alternating intervals, mimicking the presence of a human on patrol. The lion lights. That's what the world called them. On the night of the first installation, no lion attacked. And then the following nights, his neighbors noticed. They asked him to install the system at their homes. Richard Terrera became the engineer of his village at 12 years old. He presented his invention at a TED conference at age 13. The standing ovation lasted several minutes. What his invention had produced was not just a technical solution. It was a peace between human communities and predators whose coexistence, until then, had always ended in the death of one or the other. Number 4. Emmanuel Ofosu Yeboah. 600 kilometers on one leg. His mother had taught him something that his home country had not yet internalized. She had taught him that his right leg, deformed since birth, did not define what he was capable of doing, only what others thought he might be capable of doing. Emmanuel Ofosu Yeboah was born in Ghana in 1977 with a severe deformity of his right leg. In a country where disability was often associated with family shame, social marginalization, sometimes beliefs about bad luck or divine punishment, to be born like that meant growing up under a collective gaze that had already decided your worth. He grew up with his mother, who had refused that gaze. She insisted he go to school, carrying him on her back when necessary. She died when he was 13. In 2001, Emmanuel Ofosu Yeboah cycled across Ghana, 600 kilometers, on one leg, pedaling with his left, resting his right on the frame, under a heat that doesn't let up in that part of West Africa. He wasn't doing it for himself. He was doing it for every disabled Ghanaian that the social gaze kept at a distance, to show in a way that words cannot reach as directly that a different body can traverse an entire country. His journey attracted international attention. Oprah Winfrey narrated the documentary Emmanuel's Gift, released in 2005. He received a prosthetic leg. He founded the Challenged Athletes Foundation Ghana, and he kept pedaling to other countries, other audiences, other people who need to see what one leg can do. Number 3, Grand P. The man everyone underestimated. The gaze that the world places on a different body says less about that body than about the world doing the looking. Grand P has spent his entire life proving this, without having planned it that way, without the activist posture that sentence might suggest. Just by continuing to exist, to sing, to be there. Musa Sandiana Kaba, his real name, is Guinean. He suffers from a rare condition often described as related to progeria, the genetic disease that accelerates aging and profoundly alters physical appearance. His small stature, his distinctive features, his silhouette, all of this belongs to a body that the African entertainment world had not planned to accommodate. He was mocked. It was said out loud, publicly in social media comments that don't seek nuance, that his presence in the media space was a mistake, that his appearance was incompatible with a music career, that no one wanted to see him. Millions of people in West Africa decided those comments were wrong. Grand P became a star. His songs circulate. His appearances generate reactions of an intensity that artists with standard physiques don't always achieve. His relationship with Eudoxie Yao, the Ivorian influencer, created one of the most talked about and visible couples in contemporary Francophone Africa. What he represents cannot be reduced to a message about body diversity. It's something more concrete, a man whose body was supposed to be an obstacle and who made it a springboard. Not because he had a strategy, because he did not stop. Number 2, Sibusiso Vilane, the roof of the world and what it meant. On May 25, 2003, Sibusiso Vilane reached the summit of Everest. It wasn't the first time a man had reached that summit. Hundreds had preceded him since Hillary and Norgay in 1953. But it was the first time a black African man had set foot there, 50 years after the first ascent. And that milestone had still not been reached. Sibusiso Vilane was South African. He had grown up in a poor family in KwaZulu-Natal. Mountaineering is not a sport that naturally appears in the life trajectories of underprivileged South African children. It's not a discipline waiting in poor neighborhoods with clubs open to all and accessible equipment. It had taken a journey, encounters, decisions by people who believed in him before he himself had the words to name what he wanted to achieve. He climbed Everest, and then he climbed it a second time, in 2005 becoming the first Black African to complete 2 ascents. What this symbol carried in South Africa was dense. A country still emerging from apartheid, rebuilding what segregation had fractured. And a man going to the top of the world to plant something that had never been there. Sibusiso Vilane continued to climb. He led expeditions. He worked with underprivileged young South Africans to show them that mountains had no access rules that concerned them. The roof of the world was accessible. He had proven it. Number 1. Ludwig Marachane. The shower that doesn't need water. And here's the one that closes this list. Not the most dramatic story in its form, not the longest journey in duration, but perhaps the one whose idea is the most immediately useful. A solution to a real problem that millions of people know, born of admitted laziness and a mobile phone with internet access. Ludwig Marachane was 17 when the idea came to him. He was in his home province of Limpopo, South Africa. His friend didn't want to get up to take a shower. He said, in the way teenagers phrase such things, someone should invent something to wash yourself without water. Ludwig opened his phone. He searched to see if it already existed. It didn't, not in the form he imagined. He started reading about skin chemistry, about waterless hygiene, about product formulations. From his phone in an area without easy access to a library or high-speed internet. He developed Dry Bath, a gel that cleans the skin without requiring water rinsing. He filed a patent. He presented his product at international competitions. Google named him one of the brightest student entrepreneurs in the world. The practical application of Dry Bath goes beyond personal comfort. In areas without access to clean water, in humanitarian crisis contexts for populations who don't have the choice of an available shower, the product addresses a real need that standard solutions don't reach. Ludwig Marachane was 17 years old, a phone, a lazy friend, and a question no one had yet taken seriously. 7 stories, 7 people who looked at what they had, misunderstood books, electronic waste, an observation about lions, 1 leg, a voice, a mountain, a gel, and decided it was enough to start with. What they have in common is that none of them waited for perfect conditions. They started with what was there. If this video opened your eyes to a wider world than the one you're usually shown, subscribe. Next time, it goes even further. Before you leave this video, take a few seconds to look at this thumbnail. It strikes you immediately because it mixes 2 opposite things: a very simple setting, almost ordinary, and a body that seems completely out of the norm. You see a man with a hard, motionless stare as if he's carrying a story heavier than his own body. His arms, shoulders, and chest seem swollen beyond the natural, almost like a legend turned into an image. And it's precisely this impression that draws you in. You don't immediately know if you're looking at reality, an exaggeration, or a visual metaphor for human strength. This image isn't just meant to surprise, it asks a question. How many people in the world live with a story so strange, so rare or so powerful that you'd have trouble believing it without seeing it? That's exactly what this video has tried to show. And if this kind of story fascinates you, don't leave just yet. 2 videos will appear on screen. Choose one because the next one might reveal an even more incredible destiny.